Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to In Search of Lost Time and Invoices with Batch, a session that was presented at Winter Institute 2026 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Hi, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started. My name is Nathan Halter, and I'm the program manager for Batch for Books, and we'll be moderating today's session in search of lost time and invoices with Batch for Books. To start, I'd like to thank Ingram and all the publisher sponsors for their generous support of bookseller education. We wouldn't be here without them. And of course, I'd also like to thank ABA, who puts on this whole event. It is a ton of work, so if you see an ABA staff member or volunteer, be sure to thank them. It's often a thankless sort of job. So first, some housekeeping stuff. You can access all the slide decks and handouts via the Winter Institute app or on the program page of the Winter Institute website. Tell us how we did in the survey, so you can complete session evaluations in the app, and there's also a link on the slides. This session is being recorded and will be posted eventually on possibly their website, BookWeb, and also their the ABA's bookstore education podcast, Book Ed. We're going to ask you to silence your cell phones. At the end of the session, we're going to have some time for some questions and answers. The thing we'd like to ask you is to raise your hand, and Anna from ABA will come around with handheld microphones. And we do ask you to speak into the microphone. We know it's a smallish room and everything, and everybody and people can speak up, but it helps for like recording the sessions and having that audible and just accessibility stuff. Next is a slide that I am sure you have seen a bunch this week. It's the antitrust guidelines. So take a second, look it over again, and just keep these in mind as we're talking about all things Batch. So yeah, I think that's enough time of the antitrust guidelines. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Like I said, my name's Nathan, and I'm the program manager for Batch for Books. And today's session is all about Batch and how it can help with saving you time and helping you manage your invoices. I am delighted to be sharing the stage with. Went too fast. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I have a privacy screen on that was getting in my way. I am delighted to be sharing the stage with three booksellers who will be talking about their experience using Batch for Books in their stores. The agenda is I'm going to lead things off with a short overview of Batch and then hand things off to our booksellers to get to the good stuff. And then, as I mentioned, we'll end with some time for questions and answers. But before we get into the intro, let's take a minute to meet our bookseller panelists. We have Michelle Tuplin from Serendipity Books in Chelsea, Michigan, Elizabeth Jordan from Nowhere Bookshop in San Antonio, Texas, and Matt Bourmet from People's Book in Tacoma Park, Maryland. Michelle, would you like to tell us all a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Michelle Tuplin. I own Serendipity Books, which is in Southeast Michigan. At this point, probably the easiest way to introduce my store is if you saw one of those videos of the store that moved last spring where we passed books down the street that went viral, that was Serendipity Books. So, thank you. So it was very fun. We have a lot of community support then. It's a small town, but we are now settled into this new space, 2,000 square feet, and it's going well, and Batch is very much a part of that.
Elizabeth?
I'm Elizabeth Jordan. I'm the general manager and buyer and co-owner of Nowhere Bookshop in San Antonio. We're about a 4,000 square foot general interest store, all new books with a coffee, wine, and beer bar, and a subscription club service that we run out of a warehouse across town.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Matt?
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Bourmet from People's Book in Tacoma Park, Maryland. We're a suburb our store's 4 blocks from Washington, D.C. General interest bookstore. We've been open for 2.5 years, and we've never not been on Batch. So I can praise batch because I've always been there. So.
Thanks, folks. So let's go to the next slide here. So first, I just want to provide a bit of an introduction about what batch is, how it works, and then we'll get into how these booksellers are using batch. So most bookstores spend a lot of time on work that doesn't actually involve bookselling, and a lot of this has to do with your invoices. So, tracking down invoices, reconciling discrepancies, filing, organizing, making sure the payments are right, doing accounting stuff. And that work tends to live across a variety of different platforms. You'll have stuff in your email, you'll have hard copies, PDFs, various publisher portals, spreadsheets, accounting systems. And even when those are all operating in sync with each other, it still eats up a ton of your time and attention that could probably be better spent doing, booksellery things that you would probably rather be doing. Now, and our goal with this session is to get real world experience from our booksellers on how they use batch to help relieve some of the burden of all those invoices. And our focus is going to be on their workflows and their experience, what the work looks like when they're using batch, what it looks like, for the publishers they're not using batch for, and how things might have changed along the way. So first, I just want to kind of describe what batch is, just like a one-sentence overview. Essentially, we're a service that connects publishers and indie bookstores by centralizing invoices and credits in one system, so stores can manage all the various tasks associated with managing and paying invoices in one place. Let me see. Oops. And I do want to talk about, that's like kind of what we are, and I kind of want to talk about how the system is set up and how it works. When a store signs up for batch, your publishers will begin to electronically transmit all your invoice and credit information to your batch portal on a daily basis. And batch is just a web platform, so it's not like you're downloading or uploading anything. Once the information is on batch, stores can log in and review, manage, and take action on all those invoices and credits. Just one point of emphasis that I'd like to make is stores, you're not having to do anything to get the information into your batch portal. It's kind of, once you're signed up, it's just all happening in the background on a daily basis as the publishers raise those documents within their AR system. And typically you'll see that your invoices are on your batch portal before shipments even arrive at your store. And because that information is arriving all in one place and you can access it all in one place, we're going to see today how it can change how you can approach invoice management and publisher payments. Instead of maybe the normal organized chaos, the work becomes more organized, it becomes predictable, and as a result, it just takes up far less time of your work. So before passing things off to our booksellers, I thought it might be a good idea just to orient ourselves with what batch looks like, how it works, and how when we get your data, we're presenting it to you. This first screen cap is what you see when you log into batch. And this is just a summary of your outstanding invoices. And we have a couple of these summary tables, and they're organized by publisher and by due date. Specifically, this is what we call the current summary, which reflects what is due to each publisher by the end of the month, and that includes your credits as well. This is particularly helpful when it's payment time, because when you log into batch, you know immediately what you owe to each of your publishers that month without having to try to suss that out from, maybe opaque statements or something like that. This next screen is just simply a transaction screen, and it provides all the typical higher level detail of your invoices and credits. This is essentially a search results screen. So the information on the screen isn't static, and it's all dependent on kind of what parameters you set. You can set very broad parameters, which will include a bunch of invoices, or you can narrow it down where you're searching for an individual invoice by an invoice number or an ISBN. And from this screen, you can click on the invoice number to bring up the actual invoice itself. And all the information that you see here is what you'll typically find on a hard copy or emailed version of the invoice from the publisher. And all the information that you're seeing on batch comes directly from the publishers. And the end result is a system that mirrors the publisher's accounts receivable systems. So now that we have that foundation of how batch gets and organizes your invoices and credits, there are basically 5 uses or functions of batch. And let me see my notes. Sorry about this. What we're going to start with is just basic organization, how batch helps with organization. And then we're going to discuss each of the functions in the order in which you might encounter it into your workflow, including reconciling invoices, submitting claims through the system, making payments, of course, and how that can help with cleaning up your accounting as well. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is getting organized. Essentially, batch is an automated digital filing cabinet. And I'm going to start with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can you discuss how you handle your invoice, how batch helps with your organization, and how that compares to maybe what you were doing before batch?
Yeah, I think that unlike Matt, I have not been on batch since we opened. We opened in 2021. So I did have the before batch times and the after batch times when the light shone. And no, I'm just kidding. But when you weren't on batch, you have to go to this publisher's hub to find the invoice, and this publisher's hub to find the invoice, and this publisher's hub to find the invoice. And then you send them money and they apply it however they want. And it's a little chaotic. And so I'm actually one of the lucky ones that's actually live with Simon & Schuster right now. So I can tell you that the difference is mind-blowing, because they don't include their invoices in their boxes. They only get that packing list that doesn't have any really information. So my receivers were having to receive it and then go to their customer portal and print the invoice and download it and then put that paperwork into the bucket that then went to my mother, who is my sainted data entry person, who she's retired. I throw her money every month so that I don't have to do this anymore. So stacks and stacks of invoices pre-batch then became much fewer invoices because it was already taken care of and approved. So much more streamlined, much less paperwork. And we'll get to the payments part, but they actually apply it to the bills you want to pay.
I was talking with a bookseller earlier this week. We were just doing a one-on-one. I'm just talking about the system with them. And there's just a moment that they're as I was explaining, their eyes sort of lit up, because they're so I can save 6 feet of office space by not having the paperwork in there anymore. And that was a nice moment where, the light's oh, that's going to be good. Michelle or Matt, anything to add on your end, just on how batch helps with your organization? Are there particular points of friction that batch has helped alleviate, or anything along those lines?
Well, like Elizabeth, for me it was a complete game changer. I'm probably the smallest store up here, so really it's just me who does the buying and the any of the payment stuff, and it's I'm sure everybody's aware, it's completely overwhelming, and this saved me truly days every single month that I didn't have to spend payroll to have somebody else at the desk, or I was doing the invoicing at the desk, so then it was really messy. And so now instead of all those individual paper files, I can just go on batch and I can click on the name of the publisher. Everything's listed there. I can see not only what's due now, but what will be due in 30 days after that and 60 days after that. So I can just kind of plan and think, oh, actually, I've already spent all of my April money, so maybe I should slow down. Those kinds of things too. So it's super helpful.
Yeah, I'd agree that particularly for cash flow planning, the ability to see, hey, by February, by tomorrow, I owe batch a certain amount of money, and then what's the bank account look like, and what are my outstanding costs at the end of the month, and add that all up, and then that's a lot easier than going and having to figure out who owes what. I'd echo that Simon & Schuster is brutal to deal with and often doesn't send us any information about what we owe them. Even in the portal is like really hard to figure out. And then they'll be like, hey, you haven't paid us in 6 months. I wonder why. So it's really helpful for us for me, because, we run, we're a family of 5. The store puts food on the table. And so I need to know, like, are we, at the end of the month, are we going to have money to pay, the mortgage? And so with Batch, I know how much I need to have and where I can sort of pull from our line of credit if we have to. That sort of thing is really, really helpful for us. Oh, and I should also say, Nathan, how much does Batch cost bookstores?
Thanks, Matt. That's a great segue.
That's a great question, Matt.
Batch is free for bookstores, so there's no reason not to join.
Another tool that I think it's really useful for is being able to see where you are in relation to your credit limits with the different publishers, particularly as you go into the fourth quarter. And if maybe you're ordering stuff that's distributed through one of the publishers, then pretty quickly, you can get near that credit limit, and you do not want that to be cut off fourth quarter. So if you can see, and then you could just pay something else and get it under control, it's really useful for that too.
Nice. So thanks for the booksellers for just talking about how Batch helps you get organized. Now we're going to be talking about just like the functions of Batch, how they use it during kind of the workflow, like the invoice workflow. One of the first parts of the invoice workflow is reconciling the invoices. And a lot of times this is, stores want to ensure that they're only being invoiced for items that they received. And so a lot of times it's comparing a packing list to an invoice, and that can be a pretty arduous process. I know a lot of stores out there literally have like 2 stacks of paper, packing lists, invoices, and try to match them up. I'm going to start off with Michelle here. What is your process on Batch for reconciling invoices? Is it different from non-Batch publishers? And how has that helped?
Yeah, I think this is really great because, we're supposed to receive by invoices, not just pay the statements willy-nilly without kind of knowing the details. And so being able to truly make sure that we're paying for that we received is super important. When we receive in the store, our point of we use Book Manager. So we have the Book Manager window open, and then behind that we have a Batch window open. We go through the invoice on the screen. We make sure everything's as it should be. We make sure that the discounts are appropriate, all that good stuff. And then we go into Batch, and for the most part, we just tick the little button that says V for verify. And then we know that invoice is correct and we've received everything. And then when it's time to pay at the end of the month, we can authorize that and we're good to go. For the publishers who are not on Batch, that's when it all falls apart and it is a complete mess.
Especially like at the end of the month when you've got everything authorized that's been verified, that's when you'll find there's still things in open and you can click and go, oh yeah, that never came. And and that's been so much better because anybody who's not on Batch, that stuff is sitting probably on a statement that I'm not paying it probably, but nobody's finding that shipment never came to the store. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, I'd say particularly, when you have special orders and it's just another way to make sure that your customers aren't mad at you for ordering something that never showed up, right?
Yeah.
And just to let you all know, it just in terms of the mechanics on Batch of verifying, I went to the transaction screen. And we have these status update buttons on the left hand of the button. And when Michelle was talking about they find the invoice and, they just click the button. So they would just click that button there and update the status. And so that's all it takes to verify. And it puts those verified invoices on the summary screen in their own little bucket. And so that really helps, as Elizabeth alluded to, when it's time to make the payments, those invoices have already been reconciled and they're all good to go. We're going to move on to an evergreen part of the bookselling business, which is damages and shortages. A common experience, obviously, you open a box, there's damages, shortages, and publishers all have a slightly different way to report those damages, some better than others. Batch does have a mechanism to standardize that process. Matt, I want to start off with Matt here. What kind of claims do you deal with most, and how does your process look like on batch? And what do you like about the batch process there, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, as everybody knows, some publishers are better than others about packing. I don't want to name names, but we all know who I'm talking about. And, it's really hard to go through the entire box, receive it, and then for the publishers that aren't on batch, you have to email your rep or whoever's in charge of damages and beg them to get back to you. Sometimes they won't. On batch, we just click a button, and maybe you can show how that works.
I'm bringing up a claim screen right now, an invoice.
And more than that, the ability to search for the invoice by just flipping the book over and scanning the ISBN into the search box makes it a lot easier to figure out where that invoice was, rather than, flipping through pieces of paper or trying to go through your email. Now that the Gmail search function doesn't really work anymore, it makes it just impossible. So it's really nice to have a search engine that works to find all these things.
Michelle, Elizabeth?
Damages. When we receive things then that are damages, we have a. I guess if the publisher is on batch, it's super quick, and it's part of that whole same process where we have the two screens open, and before we verify, then we do a quick claim for the damaged item. And truly, I don't know, maybe it's a minute, maybe not, maybe less. So we'll have books that are on batch that we've already claimed once we've received, and then we'll have a whole pile of other stuff that we have to deal with separately that is much more painful.
Yeah, at our store, we have a shelf of not batch things that just seems to continually grow because no one wants to deal with it.
Yeah, such a pain.
And the batch books all just are fine, and we donate them, and it's pretty easy. So.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Sure, yeah, repeat the question.
Do they accept your claim in batch? Do you ever have an instance, it doesn't happen often, where they want you to send back damage?
Yeah, I can show you the mechanics of the claim here.
Do you want
Let's
to
repeat the question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the question was, do they accept the claim? Do they ever issue a call tag or want the items back?
Yes. So not often, but sometimes, and there's usually specific scenarios. So the claims process on batch is you find the invoice, you set the reason for a claim, like let's say one copy of this book came in damaged. You validate it, you get a summary of it, and then you hit create claim. So it's literally a 20 to 30 second process. And what happens at this point is the claim is sent to the publisher. They get an email with all the claim information. Typically, they just process them, and they'll raise a credit note in their AR systems and transmit that credit note to batch within a couple of days. The only times I've heard of them not processing the claim is if the amount of the claim was a high amount, like a couple $100, which usually indicates that the entire box was damaged or something like that. And in those cases, the publisher reaches out directly to the bookseller about how to resolve that issue, whether that's with a call tag or photos or whatever they need to do. Great.
And the one publisher that's different on here is Penguin Random House. You still you click claim and you still get directed to the Penguin Random House biz site, which is actually fine with me because they immediately issue credit. Like it's immediate. So
yeah, I'd say the other thing on the credit side that's nice is the immediacy of it, and watching the number that I owe it on the first of the month go down throughout the month.
Yes, I like that.
Is delightful to see like $2,000 come off of my bill.
we're having some questions. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do some questions now. Yeah, this is fine.
Time.
You mentioned that you've got Book Manager open while you're doing that. So for those of us who don't have Book Manager, we no longer receive a manifest with any of our boxes. So I'm having to run and print an invoice for the staff.
And so how are those of you who do not have Book Manager managing this process? And is there an easier way to do that than them reaching out to me? Is this something safe my staff could have access to, or am I sharing my login with my team members, that sort of thing?
Yeah, you can have users on Batch that have different permissions. So they can view the invoices and print the invoices and verify, but they can't authorize to pay. So I don't know if you can show that, but there's different payment, or different user permissions.
So then when they receive the box, they can just pull this up and pull that invoice up and print it.
And make the claim and do all of that. And
Yeah, they could just scan one of the ISBNs and then they'll find the invoice. They click on that and they could receive from that.
Our scanner is not connected to like a laptop or anything. It's only connected to our POS at the station.
You could just type in that ISBN.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so in this top right corner in the yellow menu bar that I'm on, you can type in an ISBN number and it will bring up all the invoices that include that ISBN, and it would, likely be the top invoice on the list because it's sorted by date. And just about the admin levels, we have two different admin levels. There's the admin level that can do, or a login level. There's the admin level, they can do everything on Batch. And then we have what we call a receiver level, where they can run searches, they can make claims, they can verify invoices, but they don't have the ability to authorize invoices or do anything payment related. And stores do this a little bit differently. Some stores, they'll set up one admin level email and one receiver level email and share it among everybody. And then we have other stores who they have like 10 different accounts set up. Everybody has their own login. And that's really, Batch can accommodate whatever you want to do. That's really all dependent on what you would like to do.
A related question, I think, just to follow up, be sure I'm clear on where a Batch would fit into the process. So right now, if I get shipments in, right, I get the invoice, or I have to do what she's talking about, maybe we stay with Ingram, who doesn't provide, packing slips anymore. So then whatever I do to match up my physical, what I've received to what I actually ordered. So there's nothing in Batch that's going to help me there. It's only when I've confirmed my shipment, now I can go in and approve or verify the invoices, right? There's no part of it that actually helps me to match up received to invoiced items in Batch, right? It's only after that step. Does that make sense?
So are you saying, it was like, I feel like you said a couple of things, like trying to match up what you ordered versus what you got. And Batch won't do that because the PO is going to live in your point of sale, but it will help you know everything on this invoice I received. You're still going to receive it into your point of sale the same way you do it, but you know where the invoice is, as opposed to like trying to find it on iPage or customerportal.simonschuster or whatever. So yeah, you still have to, be a very careful receiver and make sure that you're actually matching your point of sale to the total that you owe the publisher, but you at least have one place where all those invoices live.
And so you know that the items that you've been charged for, that you got them.
Or didn't.
Or did it? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move on to making payments through Batch for books. And so this is probably the thing, like verifying invoices on Batch, that's an optional thing. Some stores, they just have open invoices and then they authorize them when they're ready to pay them, bypassing that verifying step altogether. Some store, we have the ability to make claims through Batch, and some stores, they're happy with their systems that they have in place already and don't do that. So those are kind of like optional features that you can do, and we think they're great, of course. But the one thing that everybody does on Batch is make payments through Batch for books. I'm going to start off with Elizabeth. Can you, I guess, just talk about your process for making payments through Batch, and how you do it through Batch, how it compares to non-Batch publishers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll go back to my Simon & Schuster example. You got the page up so we can show the... So basically, at the month when you're scheduling that last remit, you'll have all of your verified invoices. You're going to move them all to authorized. And
cool.
I'll keep talking while he does that. And basically, it's going to tell you the amount of money. First of all, it'll tell you how much you owe each publisher, but you're going to do one wire transfer to batch for the total amount, and you're done. So I use a service called Melio. It's just melio.com, and they do wire services. It's free for up to 4 transfers a month, and I only ever do 1 transfer a month to batch. So and they will do any amount. And so I just go to melio.com, I schedule it, I make sure I know that it's going to hit batch when it needs to hit batch, which there's a payment schedule that we see every month that says when the funds need to get there. And Melio takes about 3 or 4 business days, so I make sure that I'm scheduling that ahead of time so it gets there. But I'm just sending them that, is that 37,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's a good one. No. And then I don't have to worry about it. It's done. The publishers get their money and they apply it to the invoices I paid, which before with Simon & Schuster, I would write a check. I would have a remit statement. I would send them the remit statement and they would apply it to whatever the hell they wanted to. or to not at all. They would apply it to like unapplied cash. And I'm like, why, you just have my money now. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So the clarity is fantastic. There's no question about what I intended to pay, what credits I intended to apply. It's very clear.
Yeah, I want to just add some context before asking Michelle and Matt to chime in on those things, just about kind of the payment schedule and how that works. So Batch sends payments to the publishers every Friday morning and also on the last business day of the month. Most stores like Elizabeth make just one payment a month, but if for cash flow reasons or you like to split payments or whatever, you can make those multiple payments throughout the month, and the publishers will receive the payment. And also the important thing is the remittance advice from us so that they can accurately apply your payments. Just because of the way that we connect into their systems, a lot of that is automated on their end, so it just eliminates those discrepancies that you were currently that you were previously facing with like just misapplied payments. So yeah, Michelle and Matt, would you like to add anything just about payments and one last thing before I throw it over is Batch will only remit the items that you have authorized in the system. We don't, if it's not authorized in Batch, and on the screen, I've authorized everything here, like everything's in the authorized column. But if you had some open invoices, they are not getting remitted. So you maintain like complete control over what gets paid, what credits get used. If you want to, save credits, or you have a problem with an invoice and you want to save, not pay it yet until that gets resolved, that is entirely up to you. So yeah, we don't really get involved with that. That's just that's between you and all your credit reps. Michelle, Matt, anything about payments?
I use the same system that Elizabeth does. I call it Melio. I don't know.
Texas.
Yeah. I think Nathan sends out an email once a month that says the dates where Batch is going to send money over to the publishers, and so I pick the one that works for me. It's usually always the last one. Put it in my calendar, and then just note, that Melio is going to take a few days. The one thing that's useful in the fourth quarter is if you want to pay in advance to make sure that your credit line is still good, you can move over advance invoices too. I don't know if you can show that.
Yeah, I can. So when Batch is preparing a payment to the publishers, we're looking at this current period. We're saying, well, what's current now that the bookstore wants to pay? But there might be certain cases, like with credit limits, where you want to pay those invoices early. And so you authorize the invoices like you normally do, but then you take one extra step. It's literally one click where I'm in the future period summary. If you kept everything as is, this one authorized invoice wouldn't get remitted to the publishers because it's a future invoice. But you just click this little orange clock icon. It asks if you want to move it forward. And I'm in the future period still. It's not authorized there anymore. And if I go to my current period, it's been moved there as well and will get remitted. So yeah, while we do keep them separate, there's definitely there's an easy way to make sure you pay all the invoices that you want to pay.
And if you want to do that with Macmillan and you pay in advance, you get an additional discount. So just a little bit of extra money if you've got extra cash lying around that you want to use for that.
Yeah. So the 1%, going off what Michelle said, the Macmillan, as hopefully they've communicated that to you and they offer a 1% discount if you pay Macmillan invoices within 30 days of the invoice date. Outside of batch, the procedure for not paying through batch is a little different than through batch. Outside of batch, they have you calculate the 1% deduction and write it on the statement and deduct it from your check. On batch, what happens is you submit your payment for the full amount, and our system, as we remit the payment to Macmillan, we flag the invoices that are eligible for the 1% discount, and we load a credit onto your batch portal that you can use for your next payment. If you don't know about the 1% thing, talk to Macmillan. It's a nice program.
I actually do it a little bit differently when I pay. So this morning, tomorrow's the last day of the month. We have to have all of our money in. I think it says on the bottom of the screen what the date is. That's how I know. Is it's always just like did I mess this up? Because it's due at whatever time. And while I was at breakfast this morning, I authorized all our invoices, and then called a nice person in central Pennsylvania at Fulton Bank, our bank, and the wire desk got it out this morning. And so all of our invoices are paid with about 6 minutes of work while I drank coffee. It was kind of nice.
Couple notes just about payments. We're talking a lot about Melio and everything like that. So the one important thing to know is batch is not connected directly to your bank account. Like, we're not drafting funds from your account. We give you our bank account information, and most stores send us money via ACH, and a lot of stores are able to do it through their bank with no problem. We find that some smaller banks really have trouble sending money via ACH, and in those cases, stores, the most popular alternative that stores use is Melio payments. And stores use other things as well. Like if you're set up on QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks has a payment option that I think is like $1.50 per ACH transfer. Other stores, people send us payments through Square, Bill.com. So I mean, just, it depends on what you have, what your services are, what your bank can do. We always say, check in with your bank first if they're able to do it. And a lot of banks can, great. But if not, there are free or very, very low cost alternatives to be able to transfer the funds to us. And Matt was alluding to just sort of having to get money in by a certain time. As I mentioned, we do the Friday remittances and the last business day of the month remittance. We'll include any payment that is in our bank account by the night before. So if your payment isn't in our account by Thursday night, Friday it gets remitted. If it happens to land on Friday, it's held until the next remittance. So I find that the biggest hurdle that some stores face when they're first joining batch is just getting that timing down. But I also feel that after a payment or two, they really understand it and know what they need to do, and it's not like an ongoing issue. I don't know if you all agree or disagree with that, but yeah. One other thing about remittances that we do, once we remit everything to the publishers, this table is like the authorized invoices are cleared. So these would like zero out, and you would be able to find your past remittances under this period summaries menu. Oops, sorry about that. And you could look up a date and get all the information that you need. So that's payments, and I would like to just talk a little bit about accounting now. So Batch has some integrations available with some accounting software, QuickBooks and Xero in particular. And the integrations can be helpful in keeping your books clean, keeping them accurate, and hopefully saving you a lot of time on data entry if you're having to enter a lot of data. I want to throw this over to Matt. And Matt, can you talk a little bit about the batch integration with your QuickBooks account and maybe throw in a comparison for what you are doing for like a non-batch publisher?
Yeah, sure. So Batch automatically puts all of our invoices from the publishers using it into QuickBooks, and that means I never have to enter any of those invoices into QuickBooks, which is really nice. At the same time, when I make my payment at the end of the month, and we always just do one big lump sum at the end of the month, it goes into the batch account and clears out. Basically, and Nathan will help you with this, and he's great and easy to get to when you have questions on this stuff when you're setting up. But we set it up so that I have a account that's batch payments. It goes up at the beginning of the month and it goes down once I make the payment, and it's just a transfer within our books, which is very convenient for me to spend 3 seconds clicking 2 buttons. So.
Yeah, I do the same thing. And so we have all of our individual invoices. They're all automatically there. They automatically get marked as paid after that remit happens, as opposed to like any other publisher, which my mom's earning her $300 a month, entering all of those invoices in, all individual items that then I have to go and select and write checks because it's 2026 now. And so, yeah, it's a lot less work. It's cleaner. Your books are cleaner. Your credits also go in that way. And the only thing that we have to go in and fix is co-op credits. We have to go in and move those to the right account. But
the only annoying part is that it actually is so good that QuickBooks is, I don't know if you guys are as annoyed with QuickBooks as I am lately. It just continues to get worse. Batch is good because it puts everything in, but then QuickBooks tries to like AI match up every $19.08 transaction that I have as like a PRH invoice, and it's not. But that's a QuickBooks complaint, not a batch complaint.
Thank you. And I want to just add one thing to Elizabeth's point about that expense account thing. When you're setting up your batch integration with your QuickBooks account, one of the steps is you select your expense account, and that's the category that you assign to your invoices and credits. And at the moment, you select one account, and everything goes under that account. And I know ABA in particular wants you to track co-op as a marketing expense for like Abacus and everything. So you would have to if you manually update those categories for those co-op invoices. Or co-op credits, I guess, not invoices. Sure.
In transferring over new invoices, new credits, is there a way to use what the publishers think we owe them versus what's actually in QuickBooks already? Because I know we have redundancies in QuickBooks, things that were entered twice or misentered. Will it help us clean those up? Can it help us clean those up?
You're talking about past invoices before you get on batch? Yeah, I don't think it transfers over, right? It's just when you start with batch, it's all new. Yeah.
So we could certainly help you identify which are the problematic invoices. So like a simple thing that I've helped some stores with is like for a vendor, like once they're live with batch and integrated, I'm like, send me an unpaid bills report and for that vendor or whatever. And I can I can run a thing and I can say, oh, yep, these bills are no longer open and they should be removed. That's a pretty simple thing that I can help with for sure. There's a question in the corner there.
So when the invoice comes into QuickBooks, is it going to match it to the vendors I already have for each of these publishers, or is it all going to be shown in paid to batch?
No, it matches it to your vendors. So when you set up on batch, you'll have to update Simon & Schuster with your account number? There's some string of numbers that have to go on there to match the feed, but it goes to each individual vendor. So you can still see in QuickBooks, like I owe Simon & Schuster this much money, It's just when the money moves to batch, it will live in your batch payments account in QuickBooks just for like a minute while it's reconciling all of those individual items.
Okay, but then it will clear out that accounts payables in QuickBooks
Yes.
as well.
Yeah,
I won't
they
have
all
to
get
do a
marked
journal
as paid.
entry or nothing like that.
No, yeah, you don't have to touch it.
Thank you.
Thanks. So we're going to go on we've gone over all like the functionality stuff with batch, how stores use it. I did just want to touch on getting started with batch, like implementing batch. And I wanted to start off with Michelle and just what was getting started with batch like. I guess it's a new thing to learn. Like, what was your learning curve like? What were like the pain points that you had? And like, what would you, if somebody was starting with batch, what do you wish you had known before getting started that would have helped?
Well, it was kind of scary because first of all, it was a while ago, but it was scary. I didn't know. I kind of had a handle on things, but everything was a bit chaotic, and I just didn't know if this was going to make it even more complicated. I think you were doing like virtual video informational things at the time. So I did one of those and thought, okay, I'm going to try. And I think with Penguin Random House, there was some kind of a confusion as to what had been paid and what wasn't. And I just emailed Nathan and he took care of it all. I don't know what you did, but it was great.
I did something.
Yeah, and even now, if occasionally if I have a question, we did a video call last week, the week before, and we just shared the screen and he showed me a thing, and it's really easy.
Yeah, I'd echo that Nathan's a great resource for any of the questions that we've had, and getting all these systems set up with QuickBooks and everything is a little bit tricky if you haven't done it before, and it's always scary to do anything that involves a comma and numbers. And so I think that's the customer support part of this is really important and really good with batch. And so and that's just Nathan. So this is the guy you would call. So hey guys, it's like a real human being rather than every other company in the world.
Elizabeth, any just implementation things to add?
I don't even remember implementing. I don't remember the before times. It's all very smooth. There's always somebody there to hold your hand the whole time. And it just didn't take long. And I don't know, just suddenly I was saving myself hours every month.
Yeah.
Our setup process is relatively simple. Stores just send a user agreement and get their vendor account numbers. And you're then put on a setup list, and we communicate to the publishers that you would like to add your account to your batch portal. And as you get, the publishers set up new accounts at the beginning of every month. And as you get closer to your go live month, I send you checklists, I send you some documentations, we have user guides. And then at the beginning of every month, I have a new user orientation session, which is just like a group Zoom call. But I'm always available for one-on-one calls if you can't make it, or, you want your receivers to have just receiver specific training, or bookkeeper to just have the QuickBooks training. We have documentation on those things, but I'm always happy to do Zoom calls and whatnot.
And how much do those cost?
They're nothing too. Actually, I charge $80 an hour for those calls. Batch is free, but
yeah, I guess I said customer service, but I'm not really a customer. You just give me this thing for free. So.
Yeah.
This is just a chart about where bookstores save times. We've hammered that point over and over throughout, just about how you can save time. And we took a survey a couple of years ago where stores reported saving more than 20 hours per month on batch. And that was, honestly, I think we did the survey when we had 4 publishers on board. And so that number is going to be a low estimate as we move forward. We've added some more publishers. We have more publishers on the way in the coming months. So it can just save you quite a bit of time.
Do you want to talk about what the standard is in UK with batch? Because I always thought that was really interesting.
what's this?
Well, doesn't like all the publishers use it, right?
Oh, yes. I think I'm like, is there something I don't know about the UK? But no, Batch. So Batch, we launched in the US in 2020, but Batch has been around, in like a really different form, going back to like 1948. But in its current iteration of being like a web-based thing, it's going back to about 2000 or 2001. And it is just the way that stores make payments. Like all the stores in the UK are on Batch, and all the publishers in the UK are on Batch. So yeah, they have a great adoption rate over there. It is just the standard. And I think when UK booksellers come over here, they're like, "You don't have Batch," and so it's like this little bit of dissonance here. And Batch we also have stores in like something like 70 countries or something like that. I might be underselling that a bit, but so it's an ongoing thing that's pretty great. I think that's pretty much it for our presentation, and of course I want to thank all our panelists. I can stand up here and I can do a demo and I can do a rundown of everything on Batch, but it is just so much more valuable and helpful when you hear all this from other booksellers who are actually using the system like on a daily basis. Like my life is Batch. I'm using it like 24 hours a day, but booksellers are busy and they need to find like those moments of time where they can do this stuff. And I like to think Batch helps them find those little pockets of time, make it a little bit easier. Panelists, any last thoughts?
No, I'd say the other part, on the easier part, is we have a receiver at our store who works 30 hours a week, and she is much happier using Batch than not having Batch. And so it's for employee morale, maybe it's an improvement as well. It's not just for us, but our employees really, it's intuitive enough that they've got it figured out.
How secure is our data?
It is very secure. Fraser, can you comment on the data thing? Izzy or Fraser, they know the specifics of our data protocols, and I just forget them right now.
I mean, one of the things we do is we've always followed the ISO 27001, so it's an international standard of data protection. It's really secure. Is it on?
It is on.
Oh yeah, okay. I usually speak loud enough, and so there's a real set of protocol which also separate the different systems from your data. So we're very proud of that. It's up to you to keep your passwords secure, but we do our bit, and there's a full process that we follow every year where we're audited about how we do all of these processes.
But also, none of your bank account information is in Batch. Like, they really just have your invoices and what you owe and your credits. So I'm like, if a hacker wants to know how much I owe PRH, go for it. So yeah, they don't, there's really not that much sensitive data that puts you at risk.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Looks like we have a question over there. And just one thing I'll say while Anna's walking the microphone over is that Batch is owned by the Booksellers Association in the UK. So it has always been this very bookstore-centric service, and it was created kind of by booksellers for booksellers, which I think is very nice and important, and it gives me fuzzy feelings of joy. So,
Hi. I just wanted to say I work at Nathan's bookstore alma mater from the Doylestown Bookshop. But so our store's been using Batch at least a year, maybe longer. This past January, we had our lowest physical inventory discrepancy ever. Our store's been open over 25 years, and that was due to a lot of different factors, but especially Batch was really helping us catch processing errors, make sure that we were receiving what we were being charged for. I'm so jealous, Elizabeth, that you have Simon & Schuster on your Batch. When can I get Simon & Schuster on my Batch?
Coming very soon. They're aiming for very soon, but I just want to be right. We want it to be right. I would say within the next couple of weeks.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to suggest to you, Nathan, if you can urge publishers to put PDFs on batch as much as possible, because if they're not there, we're just going to go to the portal anyway.
That is a constant message that we are sending to the publishers. We meet with the publishers like every month, and then we meet with them at events like Winter Institute. And when we're going through our checklist of, hey, these are things that booksellers want, PDFs are like, please send us PDFs. And the publishers are like, yeah, you told us that last year. And I'm like, well, we still haven't done it. So Fraser has a...
Yeah, I would just really wanted to make the point that we are so bookstore-centric, as Nathan has said, but there is a real benefit for the publishers as well. And it's not just that they're not doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. No. They're doing it because they save money as well. So it's a win-win. And I just thought that was a useful point perhaps to make.
It is, yeah. I think that it's good that everybody knows that this is benefiting publishers a great deal because it's easier for them to process your payments, and everybody is happy and everybody is on the same page. A lot less problems crop up for both sides by being on batch, I think.
This is specific for book managers, so I don't know if I should ask it now or come up later, but I was curious if you use, Michelle, I think you mentioned, if you use the book manager report of books late to arrive to know that you never received books. If I use that, do I need that functionality in batch?
Well, so it's great, but for the publishers that aren't on batch, then you can do the book manager report. For the ones that are on batch, you don't need to do that. There's a little bit of overlap there, but we get to double check. We're in that privileged position.
And one thing I'll just add to that is doing it through batch, and I might have mentioned this, I'm not sure, I probably forgot to mention it. We do have some users who, and I find this comes up with book manager users who like the claims process that they already have set up with book manager, and it's a-okay to continue on with that without using that functionality on batch. It's not a required thing that you have to do.
Because the difference with that books late to arrive doesn't necessarily mean that anybody ever invoiced you for those. And so in batch, you are catching the things that the publisher says they sent you. And so the only other way you can find that on a non-batch is pouring through the statements, which nobody likes to do.
We're getting towards the end. It's 10:57, so we have 3 more minutes. Any questions? Anna, yeah, thank you.
For somebody that's going to sign up, what do we need before we have phone calls and paper trails? What do we need to have in front of us?
Sure. Basically, your publisher account numbers. That's like the main thing. If you have a SAN number, we ask for the SAN number. But to be honest, if you don't have the SAN number, there's a way I can look that information up. Or if you don't know your SAN number, I can look that information up. So really, it's just your store biographical details like your address and phone number and whatnot, and your publisher account numbers. Other than that, there's nothing you need.
Okay, that's real.
Question?
Can you just mention a list? Because you say publishers that are on batch versus publishers that aren't on batch. Who's on batch?
Sweet. So Penguin Random House, Macmillan, HarperCollins are live on batch. Simon & Schuster, as I mentioned, is imminent. Hachette is going to be on the system later this year. We're not exactly sure of the timing, but we're thinking sometime in the middle of the year. Beyond the big 5, we have Arcadia, Blackstone, Microcosm, Gardner's US, Independent Publishers Group, and we just signed contracts with Norton this week. I would say the 2 biggest that we don't have that we get the most requests for, Ingram aside, they're their own thing, is Sourcebooks and Scholastic. So we're going to do our part and try to get them. And I ask all booksellers out there to nag them. Yes, nag them as well. And we'll eventually get them on as well. And of course, we're always looking to add, those are the ones that we get the most requests for, but we are very interested in getting as many publishers on the system as possible.
Please, Scholastic.
Yeah, my God. I nag them constantly. I will pay them late and say you would have been paid on time if this was on batch.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It stinks.
No, their portal is terrible. Their statements are unreadable.
Yeah, you have to email someone, and sometimes they get back.
They never give
Sometimes
you a
they-
credit memo.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's the worst. I mean, love Scholastic.
So it is 11 o'clock, so the end of the session. I know you probably all have things to do. Batch is out in the vendor showcase area, so you can stop by. I'm going to be hanging out here for a little bit, couple minutes, so if you have questions or need information, stop on up. If you want to reach out to me afterwards, my contact information is on the screen, nathan.halter@batchforbooks.com. That's a long email address, so if you can remember support@batchforbooks.com, that will also get to the right place. I want to thank you all for attending, and I do just want to give one last thanks to our wonderful bookseller panelists, ABA for hosting the event, and of course all the publisher sponsors. So,
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!